The first question I ask every nonprofit I work with is, what makes your organization stand out from the rest? I've heard hundreds of nonprofit leaders, program managers, and development directors struggle to answer this question. This is the single most important question any nonprofit can answer for themselves, the people they serve, and the donors and funders who support their work. My name is Heather Lenz, founder of nonprofit consulting firm Sang-Froid Strategy. I've helped hundreds of nonprofit leaders and agencies work through their frustrations with the lack of accessible, affordable, and effective ways to understand and measure the value of their programs. Every single one of the organizations I've worked with has clarity around what makes them and their programming unique and effective, and as a result, they stand out to their funders, their donors, and their clients. In my career, I've seen firsthand how much nonprofits need help building infrastructure around planning, tracking, evaluation, and technology, 4 key areas traditionally reserved for large organizations with more money and more staff. My goal is to change this landscape through e-Value8 and help thousands of nonprofits across America redefine how data and evaluation can be used to improve their organization, from the day-to-day running of their programming to the services clients receive, and even more importantly, embed this philosophy into the delivery of their programs. Before we jump in, I want to ask you a few questions. Do you ever feel like the data you are required to report to your funders doesn't paint a clear picture of the value of your work? Do you ever feel nervous about whether or not your grant report is good enough to keep your funders engaged? Better yet, do you sometimes guesstimate the numbers you report because you barely have enough staff to run the program, let alone try to add extra steps of data collection? Maybe you are on the other end of the spectrum. Do you feel like you are drowning in so much data that just isn't very helpful? Do you worry every time you have a change in staff that the new person won't truly understand the why and how of carrying out your mission? If you are shaking your head yes to any of these questions, I have some good news for you. These are all symptoms of one underlying problem that is entirely within your power to solve. I'm on a personal mission to help the leadership and staff in nonprofit agencies like yours. I want you to be able to write grants with confidence that your program stands out. I want you to have the tools you need for your program staff to figure out how to make adjustments that will improve your work in real time. And I want you to be able to communicate the real value of your program to your funders and your clients. So, in this webinar, I'm going to break down the real problem that makes you struggle with these things and give you tangible solutions to fix them in just 8 weeks. Let's start by understanding why this is a problem in the first place. As an industry, nonprofits aren't used to understanding, measuring, and communicating the value of their program. And this last part is key: in service of their clients. Let me repeat this, because this is one of the most important things that I want you to know. Nonprofits are not used to understanding, measuring, and communicating the value of their program in service of their clients. In part, this is because historically, we've tied data collection to accountability. This isn't just unique to nonprofits. This problem is deeply embedded in our culture, and it has been for centuries. Think back to taking those standardized tests in grade school. Those tests were used to judge whether or not you were doing well enough to make it to the next grade. They were also used to judge whether or not your teachers and your school as a whole was meeting standards. The whole concept of measurement is so rooted in accountability, it's hard for us to think about using data for anything else. During the last 30 years, the field of philanthropy has seen a significant rise in outcome-oriented grant-making. This shift is connected to the idea that generally, grant-making should be able to point to a particular problem that it is solving. You see the aftermath of this in your role as a nonprofit leader. Every grant application you filled out is tailored to the particular problem each funder is trying to solve. Therefore, the data you collect and report is in service of measuring how well a particular needle is moving. It makes sense in its simplest form. But when you run an organization that has 10, 20, or 30 grants, you end up spending more money and time collecting data to give away to your funders than you do collecting data to help you actually serve your clients better. This dynamic leads to another main component of this problem. That is the belief that running a program and measuring the outcomes of a program are two different things. This separation occurs naturally when you think about the idea that you collect different data to report to different funders during different times in the cycle of your program. The more funders you have for any given program, the more data you collect to report to those funders. Because like you, nonprofits likely don't have time to collect all the data. In my experience, they usually end up guesstimating just to meet deadlines. When you get caught in the vicious cycle of collecting data to give away to your funders and scrambling to get that data together every time you have a grant deadline, you are unintentionally setting yourself and your organization up to let go of the very reason you're in this industry in the first place, to actually help people. So, when you get everything together to submit that grant application for funding or report to your donors, you don't stand out from anyone else because it's hard to distinguish your program, and you don't have the actual tools you need to understand, measure, or communicate the value of your program in a way that resonates. There are 1.5 million nonprofit organizations in the United States, and the funding landscape is changing every day. As a society, we've been moving away from the notion of just doing good for a long time now, and we've increased interest in addressing root causes like childhood trauma, racism, poverty, and many others. Whether you are a large museum, a direct health and human services provider, a small arts organization, an advocacy coalition, or an after-school program, you will see your funders start to ask questions about how your organization moves the needle on root causes if you haven't already. If you don't take a moment to pause and re-examine what the core purpose of your programming is, know the short and long-term impacts you are trying to make, and have a way to measure it, I promise you, you will be left behind. It might not be tomorrow or even a year from now, but it will happen. Every month that goes by where you are collecting data to serve your program's funders first and your clients second, if at all, and every day that goes by where you are separating the evaluation of your program from the day-to-day running of your program, the less sustainable your organization is becoming. You can continue to collect your data solely for the purpose of giving it away, guesstimate numbers in your grant reports. You can continue to feel nervous every time you hit send on your grant report, and you will continue to get the same results in the short term, and be setting yourself up for decline in the long term. Just like those root causes, when you focus on just the symptoms of a problem, your solution is temporary. Today, I want to offer you the opportunity to go beyond the status quo and set your organization up for a lifetime of delivering quality programming and services, and as a result, standing out to your funders. When you redefine why data and evaluation is important to your organization and embed that philosophy into the delivery of your program, I promise you, you will see results from every angle. You will come to work every day with a better ability to understand what is working and what is not. When you realize there's a problem with your program, you will have all the information you need at your fingertips to make any improvement you need. Your team will approach their work with an intrinsic guiding value of excellence, and as a result, your organization will get better at the work you do. Your organization will begin to stand out from others in your industry because you will know exactly how your work changes the lives of the people you serve. Every time you sit down to develop a grant report or a first-time proposal, you will have the confidence that you are worthy of funding and that your organization stands out from the rest. You will become the go-to place to receive the services you provide and the go-to place to support for delivering those services. We've helped dozens of organizations gain ownership over the data they collect, build the ground-level infrastructure to embed outcomes tracking into their program, and make the whole process doable in just 8 weeks. I told you at the start that you would walk away from this webinar with actual value, so I'm going to walk you through each step of the full e-Value8 curriculum right now. It all starts with what we call reflection. You need to get a deep understanding of who, what, how, and why of your program. And in this first step, deeply consider how your program does or should advance larger organizational goals of equity and inclusion. In this first part, you zoom out to define your program's core purpose and intention. Once you have a good understanding of what your program is actually trying to achieve in the short and long term, then you take a moment to find out who else is working towards similar outcomes and learn about how they understand and measure the value of their work. Once you learn what you can from those around you, the next step is to connect the day-to-day activities of running your program with the big picture impact your program is trying to achieve. You do this by breaking down the actual pathway of delivering your program, from that first dollar in all the way to the change in someone's life that happens as a result of your program. After you have a clear understanding of the value of the work you do, it's time to get clear on the what and why of collecting data. You do this by setting an intention for how you will use the data you collect and apply the information you learn. Once you have clarity about why you are measuring the value of your program and how you're going to use that measurement, then you can start to give structure to your data collection by identifying specific and measurable questions to answer. The next two steps help you pull it all together. You build a solid plan that connects the questions you want to answer with the ways that you will answer them, and define the what and how to gather the data that you need. Then, you think about how to embed the infrastructure to measure through stories and numbers into the delivery of your program. You can do this by planning around the natural cadences in your programming and find ways for your staff to build habits of collecting data while running programming in a way that is realistic for them. The last component of our curriculum is thinking through staffing, timelines, budgets, and overall capacity to ensure you can activate what you've built. Thinking through free or low-cost software to automate some of the busy work, and setting up pre-built dashboards that update automatically to save your organization precious time and money. I have walked with dozens of organizations through these 8 steps, and each one of them has come out on the other side with real, tangible outcomes. Catherine was a program manager for a nonprofit that connects families with information about school quality and school choice. She oversaw a Navigator program that helped walk families through the school choice process and address barriers along the way. They used the e-Value8 curriculum during the development of the program, embedded data collection into their program delivery, and began collecting data in their first year. By the second year of the program, the agency was able to pinpoint the exact changes needed to increase the program's impact. With a few simple changes in staffing structure and the addition of tablets in the field, the program was able to serve high-risk families deeper and decrease the program budget by connecting their Navigator program with their other community outreach efforts. Catherine's evaluation capacity also stood out to her funders. Leslie is Catherine's program officer at a family foundation that made a program grant to the Navigator program. After receiving the final grant report, Leslie praised Catherine's team for having the ability to make adjustments to the program in real time, and Catherine's organization received a grant for operating support the very next year. Molly is the founding executive director of MotoGo, an organization that builds confidence in inner-city youth and girls through taking apart and rebuilding motorcycles. During the first few years of running her programming, Molly's staff were conducting pre- and post-tests to measure how well students learn to recognize different tools. After working through the e-Value8 curriculum, Molly is now able to use the same pre- and post-test infrastructure she used before to measure deeper change in outcomes like grit, resilience, and academic and self-confidence in MotoGo students. Now, she is able to easily connect her programming to other funding areas focused on education, social-emotional learning, and soft skills. Michael is the Vice President of Strategy at a healthcare conversion foundation. After reviewing the e-Value8 curriculum, he said, "The first thing I look for when I review a grant application is the organization's ability to connect what it takes to run their program day to day with the outcomes they are trying to achieve." Mandy leads an education department in a large museum that serves over 20,000 students per year. When Mandy's team first came to us, their program evaluation was measuring the counts of who they served and whether or not those students got their pre- and post-test responses correct. e-Value8 helped them understand the deeper outcomes their program was achieving and set up a way to measure them within their current budget. In addition to standing out to their funders, Mandy's team was invigorated through this work, becoming a team that is continuously learning and talking about their impact. This work allowed the department to establish more power within their organization by connecting the education department to the mission of the organization as a whole. While Catherine, Molly, and Mandy all saw drastic improvements in their leadership and funding after they worked with the e-Value8 team, many nonprofit leaders are still skeptical of program evaluation. I want to spend a few moments and focus on the things that hold us back from understanding, measuring, and communicating the value of our program to ourselves, our clients, and our stakeholders. The purpose of evaluation is solely to satisfy funders. If you believe this, I want to tell you today to reframe how you think about evaluation. The purpose of collecting data is for your clients, period. You exist to do good in the world, and good data helps you deliver better services. Many people believe good data collection infrastructure is just too expensive. You are right in that there is a world that exists where nonprofits pay a bunch of money for fancy software to collect all the data, and at the end of the day, that data tells them exactly nothing about how to improve their programming. I call this drowning in data. All of the data, lots of infrastructure, and at the end, it's not helpful at all. Selecting the right data points, integrating them into the delivery of your program, pairing them with things you already do, and leveraging one of many free or low-cost tools makes data collection infrastructure financially accessible. We can't do evaluation because we cannot afford an evaluation expert. Bringing in an evaluator usually comes with a ticket price that starts at about $20,000 and goes all the way up to hundreds of thousands of dollars. There is a right time and place for this, but for small to medium-sized organizations, there is a pathway to build data collection and metrics in a way that you have the capacity to manage. If you choose to hire a professional evaluator one day, you can do so. But in the meantime, you can have the numbers that matter at your fingertips. There is a long-standing fear around evaluation that if nonprofits do a program evaluation and the result shows that the program is not working, that their funding is at risk. When you use data to understand what's not working as intended, you gain the power to fix it. This kind of self-awareness and sophistication makes you stand out to funders even more. Also, you are a nonprofit, and if your programming isn't working, you have a responsibility to your clients and your donors to do something about it. e-Value8 gives you the power to do that. Many people tell me that data will never tell the true story of the work they do. I want to help you change your definition of the word data. Data doesn't just mean numbers. When I say data, I'm talking about people. I'm talking about their stories. Telling the impact of your program through stories with numbers to back it up is the cornerstone of what makes e-Value8 effective. We just don't have time to add the extra work. This one is my favorite. The concept that program improvement is extra work. Think about all the time you and your employees spend trying to make your organization stand out. Think of all the time that your employees spend gathering program data to use for marketing, or your annual report, or your grant reports. While your team will be meeting every week for 8 weeks to elevate your impact through e-Value8, at the end of that 8 weeks, you will have streamlined everything you need to report, market, and communicate about your program. When you streamline, you actually gain time, and when you stand out to funders, you gain money. It's a no-brainer. Another common belief that people hold is that program evaluation isn't that important to actually doing the work. One of the things e-Value8 will help you do is to get out of the mindset of tying your data collection and evaluation to solely funding and get into the mindset of how to use data to be the best at providing your services and doing the work. Program managers and staff cannot be excellent if they are not learning from their work today and applying it to their work tomorrow. Whatever your biggest challenge is, I want to help you overcome it. Now that you know how to stand out to funders, it's up to you to take action. Because I'm on a personal mission to help you understand, measure, and communicate the value of your programming, I want to offer you a free 30-minute call that I guarantee will build your capacity to stand out. On this call, we're going to do 2 things. We'll discuss your nonprofit's goals, current processes for data collection, evaluation, and grant writing, and align these pieces with the 8-week e-Value8 program. Then, we'll begin to identify the true value of your program and how you can stand out to funders. That's it. The purpose of this call is to see whether or not the e-Value8 curriculum that walks side by side with you to change your mindset around evaluation, helps you through the 8 steps we talked about, and offers world-class support in actually getting the infrastructure set up, can work for you. I'm guessing you're thinking 2 things to yourself right about now. Great. Here comes the sales call where you try to sell me an expensive product. I'm going to be honest with you. Yes, I do want organizations to benefit from e-Value8. However, only 40% of the people that I have a one-on-one conversation with will go on to participate in e-Value8. The reason why? Just like you, I want good program outcomes. I will only sell my program to you if I know 100% that it will help you stand out. I want to show my customers that they get real short and long-term outcomes when they work with e-Value8. So I don't work with organizations if I can't help them solve their problems. You're probably also wondering, how much does this program cost? If you've ever done it before, you know hiring a professional evaluator usually starts at around $15,000 and goes all the way up to hundreds of thousands of dollars. The average cost for a program evaluation in the United States is 10 to 20% of the program's total budget. e-Value8 takes this process and combines it with the capacity building and infrastructure development. The 8 steps I outlined allow anyone to customize the path to communicating the value of their program. My big question for you is, what is it worth to know for sure if your program is helping people as you intend, or if you need to modify part of it? What is it worth to you to make sure that your program stands out to funders? The answer to those 2 questions is clear. It's priceless. The future success of your organization depends on it. I'm going to alleviate your anxiety right now and tell you the e-Value8 program costs $7,000. $7,000 to make sure your organization has the infrastructure to truly understand, measure, and communicate the value of your programming, and to know what is working and what is not, and how to make improvements. When you use the e-Value8 curriculum once, you will have the tools, knowledge, and a book that guides you through doing it however many times you need. The process is 100% replicable. So in this call, my promise to you is to provide you with the value, regardless of whether or not my program is the right fit for your organization. I won't need to spend all the time building you up to the price or selling you on the contents, because I've already done that today. We're going to spend that time helping you identify the true outcomes of your program, and we'll talk about whether or not e-Value8 is right for your organization. If e-Value8 sounds interesting to you, let's set up a time to talk. Like you, my time is extremely valuable. I only offer 5 free one-on-one calls per week. If you are interested in learning more about the e-Value8 program and exploring whether or not it is a viable solution for your organization, reserve your spot now by clicking the link below this video.